Brian Hoyt, Vice President of Communications and Industry Relations for EF World Journeys, talks to host Doug Simon on PR's Top Pros Talk.
Brian, it's great to have you on the show. Can you sort of give us the top line explanation for performance marketing that we're going to be talking about?
I would say performance marketing is when you are able to pay for the traffic that comes to your digital business, and you're able to measure that traffic and measure the ROI that you get for that return on the investment that you're making. So if you put $1 in and you make $1.25 on that transaction, it's a profitable experience versus offline marketing where it's less measurable.
So, Brian, we're going to dive deeper into that. But first, we're trying to give people a chance to get to know you and what you do a little bit. Can you sort of give us the top line on EF World Journeys? I think a lot of people are going to be wanting to travel after they hear what you have to say.
I'm the head of publicity, so I'm the VP of Public Relations, Communications, and Industry Relations, which is a fancy way of saying I work with a lot of trade associations in the travel space and tourism marketing organizations around the world. EF World Journeys is one of the biggest tour operators in North America. We operate 3 tour operator brands. EF Ultimate Break, which serves Gen Z and younger millennial travelers who want to go on backpacking trips around Europe or stay in affordable hotels together. It's group guided travel. We have EF Go Ahead Tours, which is for adults 35 plus, but we also do kind of multi-generational family trips and group tours through that. And then our third tour operator brand is EF Adventures, which we just launched in September of 24. And that is really for the more active traveler who wants to go hiking, cycling, multi-adventure trips like kayaking in the afternoon or yoga in the morning. And we do tours in about 400 destinations around the world. And we've been in operation for about 35 years collectively between all 3 of our brands.
One thing we also like to throw in is a little nugget about you. Can you share something that people might be surprised by, or if they learn it about you?
So I know I look incredibly young. My first job in PR, though, was actually working for someone who worked in the Carter administration. So I worked for Jody Powell in Washington, D.C. in my first job in PR, who was the youngest press secretary at the time. But in the late 90s, I got a chance to work for Jody and his partner, Sheila Tate, who was Nancy Reagan's press secretary. And it was really an incredible moment in my career because it led to me getting to work with a bunch of individuals who later in life we worked in some pretty incredible the digitization of travel is Travelocity is an old client of mine. I had worked actually for Orbitz, but got a chance to also work in the online music industry where during the days of Napster and file sharing, where I was working with a group in Washington to help legalize the online music industry effectively and help them pay singers and songwriters. So it all started though working with the press secretary for President Jimmy Carter. So that's professional. I think personally, I always love to tell people it may seem that anyone in PR is highly extroverted. But when I leave here, I love being alone in my lazy boy in a dark room with a good book and no one talking to me for about 3 or 4 hours, so I can recharge my back. I am an extrovert, but I think as I get older, I'm becoming more and more introverted, and really value that quiet time to recharge my batteries.
Well, certainly no one will be surprised that you're young looking. I think that comes through loud and clear when you're talking about working with someone who 50 years ago, or I guess 49 right now,
Yeah,
was working at the White House. So
it
that
was in
goes
the
back.
1990s. I'll say that, but yeah.
So what's interesting now, if we swing back to the performance marketing piece, is that seems to be okay, you can measure every cent, but you've become a big fan of earned media. So what is driving that twist? Because earned media, you don't necessarily know the
Yeah.
exact impact.
I've always been a fan of earned media. I think earned media has had its highs and lows in terms of popularity over the years. And I think PR was something, and as a student of public relations, PR and earned media was something that was born out of World War II. And a lot of it was around the kind of propaganda movement around the war, and people who like David Ogilvy, who was in the advertising business, thinking, well, we need to create kind of an offshoot of advertising in this earned media space. And the growth of public relation agencies in the 60s, 70s, and 80s really started to come into its own, I think, in the 1990s, where we're still sort of pre-internet here, but we're in the age of cable TV and 24/7 news coverage. PR becomes really important. But I think with the advent of the internet, you saw the ability for people to begin to kind of do what I call dollar in, dollar out measurement of, if I invest $1, what's the amount of traffic I'm going to get per back for that? What's the likelihood that traffic is going to convert? And you started seeing the growth of what's called the science of marketing or performance marketing become truly a thing. So this is buying keywords on Google, investing in Facebook advertising, and now TikTok. But I think what ended up happening is marketers more and more wanted the ability to kind of track that dollar in, dollar out investment. And you saw the pendulum shift more to what I will call performance marketing buys. And maybe offline brand advertising, earned media started to become less of a thing. But then Google comes around, and SEO becomes really important, search engine optimization. And lo and behold, one of the important ways to make sure you're showing up in these natural search results is through having these qualified links and backlinks on websites around, all around the world, right? To show that you're a qualified site. Then all of a sudden, the algorithms change, Penguin and Panda, and all the algorithm changes go through with Google. And Google starts to prioritize its paid advertising business, and so does Facebook
Right.
and all these other paid channels. And I think what companies started to see is skyrocketing performance marketing costs. And they were investing too much in mid-funnel and lower funnel, what I will call performance marketing investments, and not putting enough people into the top of that funnel through things like social media, organic social media marketing, PR, offline brand advertising. And what you're starting to see is a lot of companies begin to rethink their performance marketing investments as their ROI gets thinner and thinner. Their margins are getting thinner and thinner. In some cases, companies are running unprofitable performance marketing campaigns just to get traffic to their site. And then they're starting to say, hey, the way we can make our performance
Right.
dollars work better for us is to invest more in upper funnel. And so we're going to do more PR. We're going to do more out of home advertising. We're going to do more organic social marketing, social media marketing through our own channels.
One of the things we've talked about is the role of AI increasingly placing value on earned media content as people are using it more frequently to get information. It increases the likelihood, and this includes broadcast, that you'll show up. How important a role is AI playing in this latest transition?
AI's been a truly massive game changer for marketers. And I think we're all trying to kind of learn what are the signals that AI is listening to that make your site show up or make your business show up as one of the places that consumers, should become more aware of or consider when they're about to make a purchase decision. What we have seen is that AI signals, a lot of the signals that it's looking at are these digital news signals. They're looking at news stations, whether it's broadcast media, and that clip turns into like a digital news story with a companion piece written to it, or a clip in the New York Times. AI is looking at those earned media placements as being qualified, independent, non-biased sources, as well as like studies like NIH studies or research papers that are put out by universities. But it is one of the many important signals that AI is looking at to provide qualified answers to anyone who puts in a query. And we've recognized at EF that that's something that we need to invest in more, as our businesses will hopefully show up more in those AI search queries.
Yeah, and along those lines, I saw a recent stat from Pew Research, obviously, which is, they're at the top of information. And they said for local TV news, 37% of those viewers are now watching that content, seeing that content through digital platforms. So
Yeah.
that's changed dramatically that you're getting that significant an audience, which isn't necessarily counted in the Nielsen results for the station, but clearly is huge for marketers and communicators. And you talked about the signals that come across with AI. And obviously, you've got a unique blend of both PR leadership and marketing leadership in your title. With PR ascending, as you're saying, how do you see that communications happening where you're listening to those signals, and how is that changing what people are doing?
I manage kind of the earned media side of the business, and I have a counterpart on my marketing teams here who are thinking about performance. And we really work in an integrated fashion here. So it's kind of, I like to call it the Kellogg School of Integrated Marketing, which, I really learned about back in the day when I was running PR at orbits.com many, many years ago. And it used to be, we all worked in our silos, but there was this line of thinking at Kellogg that like the performance and the brand and PR and now social media is a thing. We should all be kind of working together to make sure
Right.
that in the echo chamber of noise, we're getting the maximum benefit out of any marketing campaign that we're putting into the atmosphere, right? But what I would say to that is we're all equally interested in the signals that AI is looking at when someone goes and writes now, what tour operator should I use when I take my next trip to Rome? Or what are the best tour operators for Gen Z? And what we've noticed is that when you ask the AI to source its claims, that you're seeing, EF go ahead tours show up as the Reader's Choice Award for, Newsweek readers as being a top tour operator, or a smarter travel story that shows, the top tour operators of 2025, and EF Ultimate Break shows up on that list. And so we are investing more in going after typically what we always would have done, earned media, but in a much bigger scale to make sure that our story is on these channels that have become the signals of tomorrow. I'll say one thing about video, because you mentioned video before.
Sure.
Broadcast is taking on more of an importance as well as they have these, like I mentioned, I think before, digital companion pieces. But we're seeing more websites like LinkedIn outside of YouTube, where we know a lot of Gen Z is going to get their news. But outside of YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, these other channels are all prioritize. They all prioritize video content.
Right.
And so if we could take a piece that we are featured in and repackage that and share it through these digital channels, we know that we have the likelihood to get eyeballs on that. And that becomes potentially another signal down the road that AI is looking at. And I think we're learning as we go how broadcast fits into that versus just typical print and digital media. But we believe that it plays an important role as well.
Yeah, and that's good news, especially for us, given that our focus is video and getting clients on TV news. Brian, thanks so much for being with us. That was really terrific.
Thanks for having me.